Hi, this is Bird from Birds SVGs, and in this video I'll be putting together the egg chocolate box, and that's from the Eggstravagance SVG collection. So I was inspired by Fabergé eggs. I've long wanted to do a Fabergé egg collection, and so what I've done is I have taken I'm using foil and mirror card to try and represent that kind of precious metal that you get with Fabergé eggs. But obviously working with foil and or mirror card can be a little bit tricky because the glue takes longer to dry, and also the glue spreads quite far because foil and mirror card has kind of got a non-porous surface. It's kind of a plasticky surface, so the glue doesn't soak in very well. So it can spread quite far. So you want to use as little glue as possible. And if the glue does spread, my advice is to let it dry, and then it can pick off. And then also, obviously, you get a lot of finger marks with mirror or foil card, but it does buff off. So, give it a polish up when you're completed and it'll look great. Okay, so what I've done here is I've been layering up my pieces that go on top of the pieces for my to make my stand for my chocolate box. So you've got two layers. You've got this kind of square shaped layer, and then you've got the bow that goes on top. And then I've adhered them to each of the pieces for my stand. And now I'm going to start putting my stand together. So I would say on average, when you're putting, when you're constructing out of mirror or foil card, that it takes approximately about 3 times as long for the glue to dry. Well, as you can see, I'm multitasking because I'm actually picking off any bits of the dried glue off the previous pieces while I'm waiting for those to dry. But it does dry absolutely fine. I didn't have any problems. I just found that it took a little bit longer. So if you're prepared for that, and it does give a great effect when the piece is completed. So I'm just working my way up. I'm starting with the longer bottom tab and making sure that I've got my next piece right on that score line where those perforations are. And then once my bottom tab seems to be dry, I then add in some glue to the top tab. But what is quite important is not to get too close to the seam with the glue because it spreads so far as soon as it's got any pressure on it. So just add some glue to the furthest edge away from the perforations, and it will spread up to them. It'll be absolutely fine. So I've put most of the pieces together to form my stand. I'm just putting the last piece into place now. So again, just put glue on the bottom tab, and then you can bend the top piece away, add glue to the top tab. And like I say, you just have to be a little bit more patient. It takes about 3 times the amount of time to dry. But I had a film running while I was making this. So, the enjoyment is in the actual crafting itself. So I didn't mind. Because it really does make a really, a great effect using any kind of metallic-y looking, because you want it to kind of resemble metal. So if you've got any pearlized card or metallic or anything with a sheen, it is a little bit takes a little bit longer to work with, but the effect, you just can't beat it. Right, I'm just working on just waiting for my top tab to take. And as you can see, with all the layers that have been put around the outside, it kind of almost gives like a faux embossed effect. So that's why I've done that. Now I'm bending all my bottom tabs in because I want a bit of a solid base. Because what I'm going to do now, which seems a bit strange, is I'm going to push down on the stand. Because those tabs that were facing upwards, I want them to pop down inside. Now, unfortunately, it did actually crease one of the tabs. But when I did my prototypes with normal cardstock, they didn't crease, they just popped inside fine. But the coating on one of the pieces with the foil card did actually crease there. So you might want to pop it inside before you do that last tab up. Right, so I've just glued the little my little hexagon piece in, actually it's an octagon, isn't it, into place on the in the inside of my stand, and then I've just got to pop the one on the bottom, and that's my stand complete. So the shape shape that you've got on the inside of your stand is the same shape as the bottom of your egg box, so it sits really nicely in the stand. And that's your stand complete, and we can move on to the chocolate box itself. So I'm starting with the lid first, and you can, well, I decided, because I was inspired by Fabergé eggs, that I was going to pick some nice deep jewel tones. So I went with red for mine, and I'm starting with my lid, and I have folded along all of my score lines. Now on these particular pieces, all of the score lines are folded away from you, so that's nice and easy. You want to start adding some glue. Can you see how quick it is working through, going back to normal cardstock after working on the foil card? It's so quick. Okay, so we're starting from the bottom tab, working our way up to the top. And I've put most of the pieces together. I'm just popping the last piece in now. So whenever I'm putting a piece like this together that forms a kind of circle, with the last piece that goes into place, so the very last, the kind of joining of the two sides, I put some glue on the bottom tab, but then for the other tabs, I add the glue on the inside. So once I'm happy that that bottom tab is taking hold, I've folded all the tabs on the inside, so I'll just flip it over and add some glue on those. It's times like this that precision tip does come in really handy to get in there and get the glue on the tabs. So then I'm trying to add some pressure on the inside and outside and just form my kind of dome shape. And then once that's taken and I'm happy, I can start to work on my finial that will go at the top. So it comes in one piece, and you need to fold on the score lines. Now you've got these little tabs around the base of the finial, so you want to bend all of those away from you. But the bottoms, they fold away from you and then towards you. So each of them fold away and then towards you, and then I think it'll make sense when you actually pop it together. And then fold along all the score lines across the top, the very top of the finial. And then you just need to add a little bit of glue there on that side tab. So once I'm happy that that's taken hold, then adding a little bit of glue onto each of those little tabs pulls the pieces together, and it just takes shape on its own. So as you work your way around the base of the finial and add glue to each tab, you'll see that the shape it'll pull itself into shape. Just going to slide the last tab inside, and then I can pop it into the top of my lid. So I'm just tucking the little tabs inward slightly to pop it through the hole, and then I need to add glue onto the underside of the tabs, which is like the foil side. So again, it will take a little bit longer to actually get that to adhere to the inside of my lid, but it really is worth it. So I'm adding some pressure from the inside and the outside. I'm going to flip it over in a second so you can see that I've got pressure on the inside and the outside, and I'm working slowly around the circle until they've all taken hold. Now you've got a really handy finial, which is a handle to take the lid on and off your chocolate box. So the next step is to start working on the layers. And again, we've got a couple of pieces that layer on top of each other to give that kind of faux embossed metal look. So you've got a bow that goes on the top of your layer, and then you've got the top half of our laurel wreath, and the circle that you see below the top half of that laurel wreath, that's where your gem will go. So I looked at what was the easiest size of gem I could find, and that was a 22mm, and it was actually meant for sewing, I think, because it's got two little holes, so you actually sew them onto clothing. But if you can't find any of that size, I think using either a cluster of flat back gems there, or maybe a decorative button would look great there, because us crafters have got so many embellishments in our stash, and I'm sure you'll be able to find the perfect something to go in that circle. So one by one, I'm going to take my layers and I'm going to add some glue and kind of smooth them against the outside of my egg box. So I'm using the circle at the bottom for my alignment, so I know if that circle's in place, the rest of it will be fine. And then I'm just smoothing it against the outside of the box. So I've worked my way all the way around, and I'm just on the last one. And again, if you get any glue that's kind of oozed out, you can pick it off once it's dry, and any finger marks, you can buff them off with a cloth. Right, I've got some liners to add to the inside of my box because I thought it would be great to carry on that kind of gold theme. So I thought it would be really cool when you open the box up for it to be all gold inside. So I've got some gold embossed paper. I guess you could line it with cardstock, but I think if you've got any paper, it would be a lot easier. You know, if you've got something a little bit lighter weight. So if you've got any nice pattern papers or in speciality papers like this would be the perfect use for them. So again, I'm just lining up the circle areas and then making sure it's kind of within the facet. So there is a small border around each of these layers. So I've just added a little bit of glue to the outside edge of each of these pieces of paper, and they took absolutely fine. It gives a really cool look to the inside of my box. So here you can see is I'm showing you where the placement is for these gems. But like I say, if you don't have those, don't worry. Use a cluster of smaller gems, or a button, or you know, anything cameo even. I think that would look great if you've got any kind of cameos, or you know, you get those kind of designs underneath the resin domes and things like that. If you've got anything like that, it's a perfect way to really display them and put them on show. Okay, so I'm moving on to the base of my chocolate box. And one by one, I'm adding glue to starting at the top, which is kind of the flat. So I'm starting at the top and I'm working my way down, tab by tab. So I folded along all my score lines first, and again, all of the score lines get folded away from you on these pieces. So I'm just going to carry on working my way around, starting with the top tab, one by one, moving down as I go. Okay, so I'm going to carry on and add the rest of the pieces to kind of form the bottom, the base of my chocolate box. So I'm just adding the last piece, and then I'll be able to close up the base. And I think if you give this chocolate box egg to somebody, at Easter or any time of year, they're certainly going to want to keep it around. I certainly would. It's quite a sturdy piece, and it's really easy to use with the finial on the top as well. I think it would be great even to use as a jewellery box or something like that. It would certainly look great on kind of a dressing table or something. So like I did with the lid, I folded all of the tabs on the last piece onto the inside, and I'll add the glue from the inside. It's much easier to handle it that way. And then I'll still work up one tab at a time. Making sure that it's all lined up properly. Okay, so once that's all in place, I can add the base onto the bottom of my egg here. Just adding a little bit of glue, and then I've got the little octagonal piece to pop on the bottom. So you might just need to kind of squeeze your egg around a little bit and just make sure that it's in the right kind of shape. And there are tabs showing at the bottom here, but again, I've got liner pieces for the base. So I'm just adding a narrow line of glue around the outside edges, and that's enough for them to take hold. So I'm going to pop them inside, and I'm just going to make sure that the top edge is flush with the top edge of my box. And then I know it's in the right position. I just try and smooth it down inside as best I can, making sure that it's kind of in the line of facets. So I'm just going to keep adding these one at a time. So I'll line it up with the top of my box. And again, I'm using paper here. It's a lot easier to line this with paper, to use something that's lighter weight. So once you've added all of your pieces, you've got a little piece to cover up the base. So just pop that in, and that finishes it off. And it's all shiny and gold on the inside. Okay, so again, we've got some detail pieces to go on the outside. So now we've got the lower half of your laurel wreath and a laurel swag. And then you've got a couple of flowers that just pop in the middle there. So I'm just going to work my way through one by one, popping my layers on before I add them to my box. On those flowers, they're quite small, so I just add literally a couple of dots of glue. It doesn't need any more than that. Okay, so once they're all layered up, so now I can add some glue to my layer, to my detail layer, and add it to my base. So I'll be lining up the top edge with the top edge of my box, making sure it's flush and central to the panel, and then the rest of it I literally just smooth into place. So there's no there's no folds or creases or anything in the detail layers, so they just smooth over the outside. And the holes inside the little flowers there in the middle of the laurel areas, I sized the holes. One of them is 4mm and the other one's 5mm, so I know it's easy to get gems in those sizes. So if you'd like to pop gems in there, I mean, if you've seen Fabergé eggs, you really can't decorate these too much, because Fabergé eggs are heavily decorated. So I'm just making sure that's all, they've all taken hold. And now I can put my pieces together. And as you can see, they all pop into place and kind of interlock into each other. And you'll be able to see from the photographs how I decorated mine. I used some gold self-adhesive gems on the base itself, on the stand, and then I used red gems elsewhere. But I think I possibly even went a little bit minimal, so you can decorate these to your heart's content, and I hope that you have, you know, some real enjoyment making them and gifting them.